it shifts when you're in a virtual environment. So those same kind of event logistics that you're used to are going to have a new flavor to them. And then one of my favorite topics right now to talk about is whether or not you should do things live or you should have things pre-recorded. So we'll walk through when you should use one versus the other. And the last thing, if you know me personally, if I've ever worked with you or planned to go with you, you know I'm all about fun. But the thing about virtual events is they can still be fun. You can still network, you can still bond, and you can still create really memorable experiences for your attendees. So let's start to kind of go into the details. How do you tailor the experience? You want to create content that feels like it was designed for every one of your attendees. So, like I mentioned, I'm new to Zoom. I didn't know who my audience was, and so I asked my team to put together some data for us. We had over 50% of our audience in sales, but the rest was split almost evenly across different groups like solution engineering, customer success. We even had people from marketing from our support team join. And so how do I create this tailored experience, this tailored agenda that's going to make people feel like they learned something specific to their roles? We also looked at where people were going to be logging on from, and we had over 30 different countries that were going to be joining us for our SCO. Primarily, we were mostly in the US, but we wanted to make sure that our EMEA audience and our APAC audience still felt like they were joining a live event, and they weren't just going to get a pre-recorded, click this link and watch 4 hours a day of pre-recorded videos. So we really wanted to create that experience. We had a session in San Francisco time zone, one in Amsterdam, and one in Singapore. Was that crazy? Yes. Was there a lot of logistics that go into planning 3 events across 3 time zones? Yes. But would I do it again? Absolutely, because I think it genuinely made everyone feel like they were attending a global event. And then the last thing that we looked at is tenure. So for us, what was really important was balancing that kind of emotion of reconnecting and then really getting people prepared for where Zoom going, what do we do, how do we do it as a team. So I urge you kind of as you're planning, as you're building your programs to truly understand your audience. And then let's talk about those experts, because I'm used to having the same kind of bench. I understand how to train union AV people. I understand what it means to ensure that we have enough vegan dishes, because you never want an angry vegan at an event, right? So we all know those things, but I had to change how we structured our team and how we planned. So we looked at event logistics a little bit differently. This wasn't just about the transportation and the hotel logistics. This was having one person own meeting IDs, webinar IDs, sending speaker kits and lighting to ensure all of our presenters looked good, felt good, had the right setups. This was somebody really owning every single part of the experience of our attendees. So not wildly different, but what we needed this person to do shifted in a virtual event. And then we had our design team. And so whether this is something that you do, you have somebody, a designer, within your organization, or maybe you work with an external agency, you're no longer designing that big convention center space. It's not about stage. It's not about the walls being branded, and it's not about little cocktail napkins that you have at the happy hour. What's changed is that every single little icon, every virtual background, every communication that goes out for your event needs to have a consistent theme, concept, and design. So through design, you're able to guide people to where they need to go to help them understand the overall theme of your event. It was a really big part of the amazing experience that we provided to our attendees. And maybe it's because I'm a program manager at heart, but for me, this person and kind of this function in our team didn't change. It's just as important when it's in person as it is virtually, but our program management team was really responsible for that cross-functional, ensuring people met their deadlines, working with all of the different presenters and making sure that everything went off smoothly. So this this didn't really change for us. But what tremendously did help us was having coaches. So I've had coaches help me when I needed to present to 5,000 people on a stage. I was nervous. They gave me all kinds of tips. They told me what to do with my hands, how to walk the stage. But we needed coaches to tell people how to present, be engaging from the corners of their house. It's a whole different experience to present to a tiny little dot on your camera than it is when you're on stage. Our coaches also helped with scripting because your attendees are essentially waiting for you to tell them a story. And so they really helped us ensure we had kind of anchor statements and consistent themes and messaging throughout the entire event. And the last kind of new expert that we had to assign was people around ensuring a quality experience, and that's really around testing. So think of that as your team that does the final walkthrough as you're building out an in-person event. But now you're testing every single meeting ID, every click, every link on your platform. You want to ensure that you test every single thing before you go live and all your attendees are logging on for the first time. So a little bit of a shift in some of the roles. I think a brand new role that we saw that helped us really be successful in delivering our event. And I would be totally remiss if I didn't mention that this was not me. I'm lucky to be here today presenting to you, but this was truly a team effort. And this is Zoom's sales enablement team. They were absolutely phenomenal in planning their first ever virtual sales kickoff. So 13 people, never got in a room once because we used Zoom and even how we planned our sales kickoff itself. So I mentioned earlier, my favorite topic, do you do things live? Do you do things pre-recorded? I'll walk you through when that makes sense for each of the options, because I think there's a time and a place for both. So right now, I'm live. There's a lot. I'm sure you're so engaged, you're so captivated. Is her son gonna walk through the door and have a complete meltdown? Is her internet gonna drop? Should I go to the bathroom? Is she gonna say something that I'm gonna totally miss? There is a sense of urgency here because I am live and you know that I am live. There's also a lot of risk here, right? So if my son does walk in and have a tantrum or I do lose internet, I had one take, one shot to do this right with you guys. And when you're coordinating a bigger event, you are essentially planning not only your presenters' schedules, but their lives, their families, anyone who is around them to ensure that they have the right space and can be available to present. So pros and cons. When you're pre-recording, there's obviously going to be less technical issues, less technical risk. You can have people take multiple takes, get the right message that you want out there. You can also take a session and add post-production and effects to it. So you can I could have had video kind of streaming next to me. I could have had cool things flying behind me and really integrate some of those post-production effects. The downside to pre-recorded, obviously, is that I can't shift. I can't engage with you directly. I can't shift what I was going to say based on a question in the Q&A. And when people start to find out that it isn't live, that sense of urgency does start to decrease. In our SCO, we had a good mix of live sessions where we wanted to increase that engagement between presenter and the audience. And for some of our big kind of like can't fail keynotes and product stage sessions, we pre-recorded knowing that we wanted to deliver a really high quality experience to all of our attendees. So let's think about how you have some fun, because that I think has changed a little bit. There are no more awkward dance parties after the happy hour with your coworkers. Gone are the little like fun icebreakers that you might do in person to meet people. So how do you have fun in a virtual world? We used in-session chat. So think of it in an internal meeting as a way for people to show a live feed of their reactions. We used it while we were announcing different product launches. We used it when we did our our SCO and sales awards. People were congratulating each other. They were sharing their thoughts and excitement around things that were being announced. It was truly allowing people to feel connected to the sessions and even have some fun with each other. Then we really utilize our breakout room functionality as well. As I mentioned, we had over 2,200 people attend over 3 agendas. How do you make that feel more intimate? How do you get teams to bond and network and get to know each other? We had to create a time and space and place for people to do this, and we used our breakout room functionality. Polling. So one way to kind of have some fun with your audience as well is to ask a live poll. Ask them how they're feeling. Ask them about the topic you're presenting. Ask them about where they want to see the company go in the future. Really give them that chance to engage and give you direct feedback live as you're in your sessions. And reactions. This might be one of my favorite things that Zoom has. We're on mute. I'm not on mute right now, but you guys are. But in a meeting, most of the people are on mute. And I want you to know that I really love what you're talking about. So sending that heart emoji, sending the confetti, sending the laughing emoji. Well, maybe I might be smiling, but the laugh emoji is really what's happening behind the scenes. That helps the presenters and the audience feel connected and like they're in this thing together. And whiteboarding. Honestly, before I came to Zoom, I don't think I had ever used this feature, and it has just kind of changed how I can collaborate with teams. Whiteboarding isn't just about drawing or telling people to, let's play some Pictionary. It's also about collaborating, pulling up a slide, asking people to check how, what they want, which option they like better, truly using the functionality to connect and have some fun as well. So those are some of the things that we did to kind of connect with the audience across all of our different agendas. So I just told you a little bit of kind of high level what we did, but I want you to understand how we did it and what products that we use, because that's really important too. I'm not just telling you this because I work at Zoom. I think if I wasn't working at Zoom, we would be using Zoom for our sales kickoff. But it truly is just easy and it does just work. And so some of our audience was new. They started that, the week of our sales kickoff, and maybe they had never used Zoom before. But with one click, they were in the meeting that they needed to be in, and it was very intuitive, user-friendly, and people knew what to do, where to go, and how to be an attendee. It's also scalable. So while we were having our planning meetings with that team of 14 for the sales enablement team, or we were hosting a company-wide keynote that had 4,000 plus people on it, Zoom was able to host that kind of wide range of people for our different types of meetings. Zoom's really innovative as well. I think you guys saw this morning in the keynote all of the new features that are coming out in just a couple months. So all of you who are planning those kickoffs, and I guess in a couple months from now, are going to have these great new features that you can incorporate in your events to just step up that engagement and excitement that you're going to have with your attendees. And Zoom is extendable. So integrating with over 600 apps in our marketplace allows for things like branding your webinars, allows for all these integrations that work with any organization across any platform. And for me, what was really important was that my SCO was secure. We're Zoom. We were talking about things that we're going to be announcing at Zoomtopia. We had to ensure that only Zoom employees or the right people were attending those meetings. And we were able to do that with Zoom's really robust security. So we were able to pull off a secure and private event using the Zoom platform. So let's talk a little bit about when to use webinar versus meeting. So for all of our exec and guest keynotes, our product sessions, we use the webinar product. We're using webinar right now. And this is when you truly want to control the experience that your attendee has. So we were able to brand our webinars. we were able to ensure that all of our attendees had that similar look and feel to their specific sessions that they were attending as well. And when we wanted to create a more intimate, networking, interactive kind of environment, that's when we leveraged meetings. And for us, that was a lot of our breakouts, our team regional meetings, any fun activities that we had were all done on meetings. We wanted people to engage, to see each other's faces, and to really just be part of that group that feels connected. So when do you use meeting versus when do you use webinar? Again, as I mentioned, you can really create that sense of connection in a meeting. You have that direct kind of engagement with your attendees, and you can have 50 faces as a host that you can see as you're presenting. You can have about 1,000 attendees on your specific meeting as well. And when you want to have a webinar and you want a really controlled experience, you want to use Zoom Webinar. You can still engage with your audience, so you can use chat. You can still use the Q&A function. I have my team on right now, and they're helping answer a lot of the Q&A as I'm, going through this presentation. You can use third-party apps for what we call Simulive and pushing out, pre-recorded sessions so that the session feels more live than not. And there's all those integrations that allow you to customize your webinar experience. And then you can push out that session to 50,000 attendees through webinar. Another thing that we use that I think is super helpful that you should know about is concurrent meetings. Because we had all those different roles, we had those breakout tracks, there was about 8 different types of meetings happening at the same time. We were able to use Zoom's concurrent meetings to host multiple meetings at the same time and ensure people were going into the right place at the right time. Having options also allowed our logistics team and the people behind the scenes to control all of these things from one place. And we didn't have to have 8 people running 8 meetings. We had our control center running all of the logistics on the back end. And one of my favorite features that we got to use in our sales kickoff was the translation and transcription. Allowing our attendees who maybe English isn't their native language to log in, to pick the language that they want to see, that they want to hear, is truly an amazing experience. Especially when you're doing any complicated, complex product security type sessions, you want to ensure people are digesting that information in their native language. One of the cool things that we did is we actually had a session done fully in Japanese where we used English translation so that people could get that experience at Zoom of what maybe their friends in APAC use when they're getting live transcription and translation in sessions for them. And now I know you're going to say, I am just extremely lucky because I get to work with an amazing team. And we call those people the PSO for pro events. They're a professional services group for pro events. They help people like Tony Robbins. They've worked with Oprah, and they worked with Michelle Dotson in the sales enablement team. So I'm pretty stoked that we have these people on our team. They help you plan, design, and really guide that experience and your SCO. So they are that behind the scenes group that can help you deliver an amazing event. So I would really encourage you, as you start to kind of build these SCOs out, that you leverage this PSO Pro Events team. You can reach out and kind of get their availability for what they can do for you guys. So I know I see a lot of questions buzzing in, and I'm sure that my team was busy answering, but I do want to open it up to any questions. So if you have a question that you want me to answer live, please go ahead and put it in the Q&A, and I'm going to go ahead and pull up some of them are right now. So how did we find coaches or people to help with scripting? There are a bunch of people out there who work for companies that do coaching, speaker coaching. I would just say to leverage your networks and find the right type of coach for what you're looking for. There are also a lot of really great virtual presenting coaches right now. So I would just make sure you find what is, what you specifically need for your event when you do find a coach. Can you pre-upload pre-recorded videos or slides that you are mentioning? Yes. So if you have any kind of like a show software, Zoom integrates with those types of platforms. If you're going to have a production company help in the back end, they can preload a lot of the videos that are pre-recorded and play them during your webinars. We call that Simulive. So it feels like you're watching a live seamless webinar, but all those things are preloaded and ready to go on the back end. When you're communicating openly to the audience during the pre-recorded sessions, did you use any other tools to keep them engaged, like polls or similar? So yes, we did use polls. You can use tools like Kahoot. You can use multiple different types of polling and engagement apps. There's 600 different apps that we integrate with that you can take a look at and see, what you can use during your SCOs to make it successful and to really engage with your audience. Any tips for a hybrid event? What platform is being used to host Zoomtopia? So I think there's two questions there. So let me answer those two things. So as far as a platform, you are able to use any platform while using Zoom for the meetings or the sessions specifically. We have used multiple platforms. We used Intellum which is a learning management system for one event. We used WorkRamp, which is also another LMS to integrate into an event. We've used Cvent. Our Zoomtopia platform is a custom built platform. So all I'm saying is that you can integrate Zoom capabilities with any event platform that you choose. So that is a great thing and gives you options there of what you need to use. The second part of your question is any tips for a hybrid event? I think there's a lot of cool use cases that you saw with Zoom rooms, right? Like ensuring people's temperatures are taken before they go to the event, making registration easy and touchless and not requiring people to be close together. I think there's ways that you can use, how you set up a room so that people can view the content and information without being, too close together. So there are some really cool use cases that you can have a hybrid event for sure. Any fun activities that we held? Yes, my team is like just amazing at this type of ideas. We've had cooking classes, we've played bingo, we've done Family Feud, we've done really cool icebreakers where people get to know each other, and scavenger hunts, and that when you're like trapped in a room, escape rooms. We've done escape rooms, and we got people to bond that way. So I would say anything that you would want to do in person, you can probably find that now in a way that you can do it virtually. But there are some really cool games and activities that people are doing online right now for different virtual events. So what are some of the tools you use to make webinar meetings seem more live? So one thing is you can do a live webinar. That'll be the top level of liveness for a webinar. But you can do a lot of preloaded, pre-recorded sessions and almost do a hybrid event. Have a speaker, have an MC who is live in the webinar, but play pre-recordings kind of intermittently through the session as well. That'll keep engagement, and it'll also have that kind of urgency, and somebody is leading and hosting this webinar, which truly gets people to stay engaged for longer. Where can I learn more about concurrent meetings? So you can go to our website. You can reach out to your CSM if you're an existing customer. This is a product that Zoom offers, and you can get that today. It is an add-on, yes. And the difference between a concurrent session and a breakout is that a concurrent session is me speaking to you live right here, and then a whole nother instance where they're talking about sales kickoff happy hour events. And those two meetings are different, but run at the same time. A breakout is where in this meeting here, I could designate that we all get to break out into a room of 10 people and get to know each other through an activity, or, you know, we want to share, I don't know, what's our least favorite food. That's a breakout room, a smaller subset of the meeting that we're in. Is there a noticeable financial savings from the cost of physical versus virtual? Yes, I think we spent about a quarter of what we would have spent had it been in person. Sending 2,200 people to one location globally, all the flights, all the hotels, all the food, all of the logistics that just go into transporting and traveling, that's gone. So we got to use the money, I guess, that we had in our budget in creative ways. We had brand new swag for everybody. We had people watch a movie. You can ensure that people get lunch or like Uber Eats codes or DoorDash money so that they can make sure that their lunch is there and you're eating lunch together. There's some really cool, fun ways that you can repurpose the spend had it been in person, but we did see a tremendous cost saving in doing this 100% virtually. And is there a charge to use our PSO team? Yes, there is. And if you reach out, they can absolutely help you scope what that charge would be. It's truly based on the event and the level of help that you require from our PSO Pro Events team. Um, so what third-party tools do you recommend to drive and measure engagement? I think this depends on the platform that you use. Some platforms have built-in engagement tools. One thing that we did that was really cool was we gamified our event. And so when we used our event platform, we were able to assign points and create leaderboards and really create that kind of experience of a competition for our attendees. So when we could track whether or not they were engaged, answering questions, attending sessions, and people were earning points. And it really drove people to be excited about the event. So we gamified our event through our specific event platform. So I think it really just depends on what platform you use and what they offer. How do you brand webinars? So we have a bunch of third-party tools that we integrate with. We use different tools. I think one of the tools that we used in our sales kickoff was OBS, and that's where you saw Eric and Ryan in a branded webinar screen. So you can, there are third-party tools out there right now that you can use to brand your webinars. How did you do networking? Okay, so I think this depends on your audience. With 2,200 people, we had to get creative. So you can group people by what we called like their new hire cohorts. It was almost like that classroom, right? If you were in this group, you get to meet for a happy hour, or if you're in this segment and in this region or in this specific group, we got to meet for some different fun events. So you also want to create an experience where your new people are also collaborating with those who've been on your team for a while as well. So having more random general networking sessions is a great way to encourage people to meet and collaborate and speak to each other as well. How do you ensure the quality of the playback for your content for your attendees? So a couple things. There are a lot of back end system kind of checks that you can make to ensure that your attendees are presenting in HD, that they're optimizing video when they're presenting. There's a lot of things that we've done with high quality audio that you can use as you're presenting in your sessions to ensure that your audience is going to get that max amazing quality experience. So on the back end at Zoom, in your Zoom client, as you're creating all of these webinars and meetings, you can go in and you can specifically select which options you want to create that high quality experience. Can PSO help to bring the right resources for complicated production? Yes. The Emmys, I'm not saying Oprah is complicated, but like anything that Oprah was putting on globally, Anything that you saw in our keynote that was just high production value is what our PSO team really does well. So they can do very complicated production, absolutely. So what can we do to level up the presentation to be more than just a well-coordinated Zoom webinar? I think you can answer this question in a couple of different ways. So what I would say is that you really want to practice and you really want to know when you want to do something live versus pre-recorded. And if there are aspects of your session that's pre-recorded, having that post-production, video effects, graphics in your session will keep people engaged and will help make sure that it doesn't just feel like presenter, slides, not a lot more to it than that. So I think practice, understand the experience you want to provide, and see if there's any way that you can add any post-production value to your sessions. So transcription is not automatically built in, but it is an option. So you can work with your CSM, go to our website, and we also have live translation options as well, and you can add those to any of your meetings. Is there a limitation to how many simultaneous Zoom webinars or meeting can be run at the same time? There is, and I need to get back to you, Allison. Sorry, I'm pretty sure it's on our website. I want to say it's like 10, I could be wrong, but there is some max number for the number of concurrent meetings that you can have, yes. Can you have pre-assigned breakouts in the same Zoom meeting, and can you pre-schedule when these take place? So you can have pre-assigned breakout rooms. You can designate where people go, or you can have them be absolutely random. So it's really just dependent on how you set up that breakout room. You can also make sure that people either go to a new breakout room or go back to their original breakout room. So there's different settings that you can control as a host when you are sending people into a breakout room from the main session. So how long was a typical session for your SCO? And did you build any polling question? Yes. Okay. So our longest session was our keynote, and that was an hour. Then followed by our product sessions, which were 30 minutes long. And any type of really complicated, complex session, the max was 30 minutes. A lot of our breakout content was actually 15 minutes long. And I think this is a great question. So thank you for bringing this up. People's attention span is at an all-time low. They are multitasking, making a sandwich. Their kids are having a meltdown on the floor as they're attending this conference. You have to keep them engaged by allowing them to digest what's being said. So a lot of the content was straight to the point by the subject matter experts in 15-minute increments of time. And then we led them to additional information in our own LMS and kind of our content where we house a lot of our post-event information. So like, here's the important facts in 15 minutes, and here's where you can go to learn more. It worked really well with our audience because it was just the right amount of information, change of session, change of pace to keep people engaged. Is there a workaround if your laptop does not have a green screen and you want a speaker to utilize a predetermined custom background? So depending on the version of your laptop, I'm not using a green screen right now, and I am just using our virtual backgrounds. If you want to use a green screen, they have some on Amazon, and you can literally hook them to your chairs. Or you can have them stand behind you. I know people have used things like a green towel, not joking, green sheets behind them. I think you can get really creative in creating the right space if you want people to use virtual backgrounds. So how would you create exhibitor tables at a conference? What we did is we actually had a Zoom virtual expo hall, and we allowed partners and different groups to come and have a virtual space and booth within our event. So we had internal teams who work heavily with our sales and revenue org who had booths. And we also had external partners that could have a space and place to share the latest, most important information. Because of our event platform, they could, chat directly. They could go to the specific pre-recorded session. They could download assets that were important. So we really kind of created this virtual expo hall during our event to allow people to get that same experience you might have in an in-person event. Is there a way to make speakers look more real in front of a green screen? The best thing I can tell you is good lighting goes a long way. I think if you can I have a big ring light that's above me. I feel like an Instagram model that's going to do like a makeup tutorial after this, but it is a giant ring light. And that is the only way that my virtual background will not be as distorted, is because I have really great lighting. You can also adjust your lighting in the Zoom client as well so that it matches and just enhances and makes that session be really high quality. What are your best practices for reporting after these events and tracking attendance? So we tracked a couple different things. We tracked not only attendance, we tracked engagement through the gamification. We tracked how many sessions were, how many people went to the sessions that were flipped in a post-production site. We kept all of our content live, and all of our recorded sessions were hosted for 2 weeks, and we allowed people to keep going back and getting information, going back and watching sessions that they missed. So our SCO might have been 2 days live, but we allowed for people to learn over 2 weeks before really reporting on how many people were engaged, downloaded information, and attended the different sessions. We also looked at not just engagement, but looking at a pre and post of knowledge. So one thing that you can do is almost like pre-work is assigned before the event. You have people do a couple different things. You ask them some questions, and then you might do the same thing at the end. You ask them similar questions. And showing that increase of knowledge from before they attended to after is a great way to report on attendance and learning and ROI on the event. So let's see. What is the best thing about working at Zoom? The best thing about working at Zoom is that I finally get to tell my parents what I do and they understand and they get to use the tool. And I think the second best thing about working at Zoom is that culture that our executives have created about care. We genuinely want our customers to have an amazing experience, and that is felt and delivered by every single employee. You might think like, are they really that happy? Do they really care about their customers that much? And this is just one of the best groups I've ever worked with before when it comes to caring about their customers. Absolutely. Prior to COVID, most events centered around food. That is my favorite part. Yes. So have you had any successful ways to incorporate meals during an event? Yes. So I would suggest that you can even still have a awards dinner. You can give people money for that specific lunch. You can give them a stipend every day for lunch, or give them, like I mentioned, Uber Eats or DoorDash credit. You can tell people to make the same kind of virgin or alcoholic beverage for a happy hour and give them the recipe. You can share recipes on how to make guacamole and make sure everyone makes it for your session. There's a lot of ways that you can still incorporate food and kind of that gathering around food in fun ways. So I would just suggest kind of looking out for things that people are either hosting third party or get creative within your own teams, but you can absolutely do that virtually still. So how long was your SCO each day, and how do you address Zoom fatigue? Our session was 4 hours a day with breaks in between. So we allowed people to work in the beginning. We had breaks throughout. We even had a 30-minute lunch break, and then we allowed people to catch up on their emails afterwards. So that's how we addressed Zoom fatigue, was giving people ample breaks. And I think we're right at time. I know there's a bunch of unanswered questions. I'm sorry I couldn't get to them all. Feel free to reach out, LinkedIn. I'm happy to help. As I mentioned, if you're worried about what your SCO is going to be like, we didn't know how it was going to turn out, and it turned out amazing. So have the confidence, know you know your audience, know you know what's best for your team, and I wish you all extremely successful sales kickoffs in your future. Thank you so much for joining this session.